Você deve estar imaginando que já fez grandes viagens na sua vida, que é um aventureiro de marca maior. Ah, meu amigo, eu tô com um cara que vai colocar vocês no chinelo. Isso mesmo, o Chris Ramsey tá aqui e eu duvido que você já fez alguma viagem que tenha chegado perto da que ele realizou ao lado da esposa dele. First of all, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Lovely to be here, thank you.
How are you, Chris?
I'm doing well. It's here in Brazil, first time in South America, and the welcome has been amazing.
Yeah, people usually to say that Brazil is an adventure, but in your resume, your knowledge about adventure is a bit different than us. So, tell me what kind of trip you did in the past for viewers.
Yes, I mean, I'm known as an electric vehicle adventurer, so the clue there is I adventure across the planet using electric vehicles. And previous adventures I've done, probably the most notable was with my wife, who is my co-driver. We drove in the Mongol Rally. So the Mongol Rally is a drive from London to Ulan-Ude in southern Siberia. That's 16,000 kilometers. And we did that in a 30 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf, about 100 kilometers range. We did that in 56 days.
Então, vamos lá. A gente, obviamente, durante toda essa conversa vai legendando e tudo mais, mas eu quero fazer uma exclamação em português. Primeiro, viajou com a esposa, então ele não é louco sozinho. E segundo, ele teve como autonomia de carro um veículo elétrico com autonomia de 100 km para ir da Inglaterra, do Reino Unido, até a Mongólia. Tá bom para você? Agora sim, vamos embalar aqui a conversa 100% em inglês. So, how it was to prepare this trip, this rally, when you look to your wife and say, okay, let's spice this relationship. Okay, UK is nice, but let's go all over the place.
I'm so lucky. She goes with my madness. I mean, okay. I've done lots of electric trips, but then when I said to her, look, that's it, I want to enter the Mongol Rally, because we wanted to show people that electric cars, we have charging infrastructure in the UK. We're very blessed to have a lot of charging infrastructure. Yeah. But we wanted to show that you don't necessarily need charging infrastructure to have an electric car. So I said to her, let's drive from London to Mongolia in our electric car. And the rally is something I've wanted to do for many years, probably somewhere in the region about 4 or 5 years. But it has a couple of simple rules. So you have a start point in London, you have the end point in Ulan-Ude in southern Siberia, but the route, you make it up.
Oh, great.
You can just go wherever you want.
And what about the cars? All cars were electric or not? No. Just you?
Just us.
Okay.
So 250 cars every year enter it. You can be a maximum of 1,000 cc. You have to be cheap and you have to be unsuitable. So the Nissan Leaf is a 1,000 cc car in the UK, classed as that. And I think a lot of people think it's completely unsuitable for doing a 16,000 kilometer journey, apart from obviously me. But yeah, it's 250 cars entered, and they've been doing it for 13 years. This is the first electric car.
Okay. When you sign in, when you went to the start with your wife, how it was with the other competitors? They look at you and come on, man, come on. Yeah. You have time to change your mind. You will not come back.
That was the feeling, because actually, I mean, the media had told our story quite a lot, and we turned up to the finish at the start line thinking very embarrassed because the media had told our story. And we turned up and everybody came up and went, oh, you're the electric car. You're crazy. You're mad. Why are you doing this? And I said to them, when you go through countries like Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, petrol or gasoline is only available on the black market. So how are you getting that fuel?
Oh,
me, electricity is everywhere.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, maybe you're not mad after all. Yeah. It's like, yeah, electricity is everywhere. So they kind of understood the theory behind it. And the plan was to hopefully try and get other people to go electric. But that year, everybody did think we were pretty mad.
I am curious because you mentioned you have a starting point, an ending point, but the route, it's not the same. Yeah. How you prepared, the logistic, where to sleep, and especially where to recharge? Yeah. Because, okay, you mentioned, we have electric all over the place, but some places are easier, some places are not. So how it was, because you have 100 kilometers to find a place to recharge. So how it was?
So in Europe was pretty easy because we have DC, very fast, high-powered charging. So we were able to travel through Europe pretty quickly. But when we hit places like Turkey, Georgia, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Russia, it was literally walking up with our 2-pin charging cable and saying to cafes, restaurants, people's car garages, can I plug my car in and charge? Really? And it was literally, we planned about every 100 kilometers on a map and said, we can go there.
Okay.
It's a building, it's a restaurant, it's something, hopefully they will allow us to charge. And the kindness of people, as we've experienced here in Brazil, everybody just opened their doors. They were quite happy for us to turn up and plug in because they've never seen an electric car before. So we were actually educating them about electric and they were learning about that, but we were also spending some amazing time with people and hearing all about their culture, which was part of the trip. You know, the electric car allowed us to stop and connect to electricity, but to connect with those people.
Well, for sure. How many times to recharge a car?
So the whole trip, in 56 days, 16,000 kilometers, 111 charges. 75% of those charges were just from a normal domestic socket.
Oh, really?
So we have loads of stories.
But how many times it was necessary to full recharge a car? How many hours?
So a full recharge on a domestic socket takes really about 12 to 13 hours.
So you probably went there and said, okay, do you have a place to recharge? And what about a coffee? Could I use your batteries leave? How it was?
We would turn up to cafes and just go, we've come here for lunch, can we plug our car in? And we plug the car in and stay there for like 5 hours. And we'd offer to pay for electricity, but nobody would take the money from us. Cool. And then we'd drive on to our next destination at night and we'd turn up to garages and the people would say, you can plug in, oh, you sleep in the car. No. You come home with me and you sleep in my house. And they would open up their doors. But in reality, 80% of our charging was done in a location like in Kazakhstan, a petrol station in the middle of nowhere. So we slept in the Nissan Leaf. So that was our hotel for 80% of the trip, sleeping in the front seats of the car.
Did you have any issue, I wouldn't say violence, but to be, okay, here is a bit dangerous, how it was?
We're traveling to countries that we don't know and but no, I mean, I can genuinely say we went into countries that, for example, remote locations like Kazakhstan, we never had any issues with that at all. I mean, it reinforced our feelings of people because we think we're going into these countries, it must be dangerous. But we got there, the people were kind and open, and we just realized we weren't having any issues. And Russia as well, the kindness we received in that country was amazing.
And you and your wife have been in so many places with so many different cultures and different families. So how it was that, to be part of a kind of family, day in, day out, different people? Do you have any more special memory? Not about the trip, about the people.
Yeah, about the people. I mean, that's the point. The trip was great to do that trip, but it actually was about the people. I mean, 111 charging locations, 111 stories. It's just mind-blowing. And being in, what you're saying, Turkey, when we pulled up to a garage, we were plugging in to charge, and we said to this guy, look, we're gonna have to leave soon in a couple of hours. It's going to be late night. We need to leave. Can you maybe just leave the cable under it? And he said, no. My wife is coming here, unplug, you come to my house. They put on pizza and tea, we sat there, they had their little boy, and we all just chatted about Turkey and the culture and our culture from Scotland. And in those occasions, it was lucky because the husband spoke English, but then we used things like Google Translate. And the car became a whiteboard for interaction with people as well, because the Kazakhstan dust covered the car, but we could write in the car messages and 240 volts, and things like this. And that just became an amazing part of the story.
It's interesting because you mentioned this rally was 2017.
Yes.
So it's 5 years ago, but the industry and the technology is changing so fast. I imagine you maybe arrived in a place asking to recharge a car and somebody said, is it possible to recharge a car? Did you find this kind of situation?
Because, I mean, I go to Kazakhstan and Russia because they've never seen electric cars.
Okay.
And they're going, what? There must be gasoline, must be a hybrid. And it was like, no, it's fully electric. And then we just show them, we just plug into a normal domestic socket and they're like, wow, it's amazing. But when you look at, that's the thing that fascinates me about this, and that's why I do what I do, because the technology, the innovation, that's what got me into electric cars, was the technology behind it. And the fact being Scottish, you know, we like to save money, and I could charge for free, so that was obviously a benefit as well. But it's that innovation. As we see now, the charging infrastructure is growing, the charging speeds are getting faster. But we'd also say as well that in Kazakhstan and in Russia, they now have charging infrastructure because of our trip.
Really?
Our route in Russia, our route in Kazakhstan has charging infrastructure installed on it because they saw that's the future of cars.
You mentioned the 100 kilometers you have to, you know, go from one point to the another point, but I read you just spend like $100 more.
In
electricity. Is this the calculation? How would it be if it was a regular car? How many? Do you have more or less idea?
So, I mean, all the stories we had with the teams when we got to the end, because obviously all the other teams that were traveling, we were unique because we drove an electric car, but we were no different to them. They still had the same stories, they still did the same things as us, but one of the things we talked about was that. It cost us $100 complete in electricity, but then we talked to the other rally drivers and they were saying, well, it's cost us about $3,000 in fuel to do the same trip. Mm-hmm. And the great thing with us, we were forced to stop. So we couldn't power through countries in that sense. We were forced to stop and have all these experiences. Some of these teams just pushed on through countries and didn't get as much of an experience as what we did.
Yeah, for sure. I read you have only a flat tire. It was the only problem you have.
I mean, I've been a Nissan Leaf owner since 2014, and that car is so reliable. So that gave me the confidence to go and use the Nissan Leaf for the expedition, for the Mongol Rally. And during that trip, we drove through a desert steppe. We were driving on areas in Kazakhstan that had no roads. It was just dirt trails. But when we got onto the tarmac in Kazakhstan, the nice, beautiful tarmac, we hit a nail, which gave us a flat tire. We hit a big buckled section of tarmac, which buckled our wheel. And that's the only issues we had with the car. And that car is at home with us now. It's in a museum. It's never been to a garage. It's never needed to have any work done to it.
Fantastic. So let's talk about the next adventure. This one was from west to east. Now it's north to south. How it's going to be the next adventure? You and your wife will be involved.
So we are going to be driving from the magnetic North Pole to the South Pole in the Nissan Ariya, an 87 kilowatt hour e-force Nissan Ariya. So
the difference now shows what the industry is doing, what Nissan is doing as well. So you have more kilometers to go. Compare first of all the Leaf you drove 5 years ago with the Ariya.
Yeah, so that's the thing is, when you mentioned earlier on about charging, it's the technology and innovation has moved on so much. So the battery technology has moved on so much, the range has moved on so much, and the cars. You know, the difference between my 24 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf to the Nissan Ariya is, you know, it's night and day. So for us to be able to use that car in these terrains in Antarctica and in the polar regions, we're pushing that technology to its limits with regards to the temperature. Because we're going to be going into something like minus 30 degree temperature. Mm-hmm. And for an electric car, people say you shouldn't do that. The cold impacts batteries too much.
Oh, really?
But we're showing people that, yes, it does, but not as much. So we're pushing it to the extreme. We realize that everything we do pushes things to the extreme. But that's how we innovate. That's how technology gets bigger and better, just by pushing things to its absolute limits.
When you are going to start the adventure?
So we start in March 2023. So we're literally 5 months away from being in the Arctic. So it's exciting. While we're here, another exciting thing is while we're here, our Nissan Ariya, our expedition Ariya, has just arrived in the UK.
Oh, really?
So we're here, the car's there. I would love to be back there, but I would love being here. But the idea, obviously, that car's then going to go to our Arctic partner, Arctic Trucks. Mm-hmm. These guys are the specialists in Arctic expeditions. Okay. And they're going to take that car and they're going to basically modify it to take the wheels off, open up the wheel arches and put 40-inch tyres, so 100 centimetre diameter tyres on this car. It'll be running on 15-inch rims, but we will then allow us to float on the snow. It's a 2.5 ton vehicle, so it's able to float on the snow, because when we're in the Arctic sea ice is 80% of our road. Mm-hmm. And we're traveling in a time when obviously in the climate times that we are, that Arctic sea ice is getting thinner. So we want to make sure that we can travel across that region and we don't obviously go through the snow.
But in this, in the north, are you be able to go alone, or you need somebody going with you? Because not just because of the car, because you and your wife as well. It's
safety after all. So, I mean, myself and my wife, I mean, this really is a dangerous expedition. You know, we are putting our lives at risk. But we think the message that we're trying to get across to people around the climate crisis and around electric vehicle accelerating that adoption, that's the risk worth taking. But when we do go into that region, we will have Arctic trucks with us.
Okay.
One of the things we're doing is being open and honest. So we will be emitting carbon as part of this expedition. We have to, because there are things where we can't go outside of the norm. So in the Arctic and Antarctica, we are not allowed to be in those regions with an electric vehicle on our own, because the people that issue the permits don't understand enough about the technology.
Okay.
So they can say, well, you need somebody with you. So Arctic trucks will be there with a fossil fuel vehicle to support our expedition. But when we leave the Arctic and Antarctica, they're going to take the learning from this expedition to educate the governments, to let them know that we can then electrify polar exploration fleets. So there's a legacy from this is we do our expedition, but they want to take that learning and they want to make sure that scientists and other expeditions can travel through these regions without emitting any emissions whatsoever at all.
When will be, or where will be the first place you will be alone? Canada is going to be the first.
So what we do when we come out of the Arctic, we're going to go into Canada, into Edmonton, and we'll be traveling over to the west coast, where we will come down through North America, then into Central America, and then the full length. When we get to the Darien Gap, which a lot of people know is obviously not a safe place to be for expedition teams, so we will be using a ship to go around that section, and then we will be traveling through the full South America down to Ushuaia in Argentina before we extract into Antarctica in December 2023.
And concerning what you could, prepare in terms of the people, about the country, in comparison with the 2017 rally, how it's going to be different? Even the floor, even the weather, even the people, comparing America to the Europe or Asia.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is going to be completely different because we're going to experience vast different cultures, vast different terrains. I mean, we're going from the colds of the poles to the humidity of the jungles to the harshness of the deserts in Nevada, for example. So the car is going to be, car and our bodies is going to go through those mix of terrains and emotions. But when it comes to the people, that's the bit we're more excited about. Doing this expedition is really great. It's amazing to do this. It's going to be the world's first attempt at doing this expedition. No combustion engine vehicle's done it, and obviously no electric vehicle. But when we get to these countries, when you go into America, go into Central America, South America, as you say, the cultures are so different. Yeah, for sure. The people, the cities are so different. We're seeing that with being in here.
Even in Brazil. Brazil is one country. Yeah. So many different people.
And it's just the culture here in São Paulo. We've loved it, and we just see the difference what that's going to be as we travel through. So it's hard to pinpoint one particular country that we're most excited about going to or experiencing the culture, because there's so many and they're so different and so vast. It's just going to be amazing. I'm excited. I'm sitting here and I'm talking to you and I'm thinking, actually, I just want to get going now because it's going to be really amazing.
And how is the technology around America? Because you mentioned in your first trip in Europe, a lot of places, prepared for the electric technology, and then it started to get worse. Yeah. I imagine maybe Canada and US will be a little bit in front of the rest of America, but how would it's going to be in Mexico, in Brazil? How is the technology in those places?
So I've been planning this expedition for about 4 years. So route planning has obviously been a crucial part of it. And the charging infrastructure in a lot of like Central America, Mexico, Nicaragua, Costa Rica is actually pretty good. Oh, really? So we can travel really about 40, 60 miles and be picking up a charger. So that's actually really good. But a second part of our legacy aspect has been working with a charging partner in South America, in Chile and Peru and Colombia, for us to install a charging network along our expedition route. It doesn't fill all the gaps, because if it filled all the gaps, we wouldn't be able to go to people and dangle a charging cable and have those interactions, which is what we really love about it. But it's going to leave a network for after our expedition for other EV drivers because South America is an emerging market. Electric cars are coming to this region, as we've just been hearing from Nissan today. So it's leaving those chargers for those people so they can have their own adventures, or even just travel from city to city. So
in 2017, when you started your rally, people look at you and say, come on, man, are you crazy? How long it's going to take for you and your wife to be the majority? You park and you look around, everybody is more or less like you, and people with the, fuel cars, the minority.
It's quite an interesting question because it varies between the countries. So Europe is that's such an accelerating market for electric cars. And we're starting to see, when we go out into the streets, electric cars are driving past us. There's not more electric cars than combustion cars, but we're getting that kind of adoption. And then we come to a place like Brazil here, and we're hearing that there's very few. I mean, there's maybe a couple of thousand electric cars in Brazil. But you're at that point, which is really exciting because you can learn from all the other countries, the charging infrastructure and the technologies available for you guys to accelerate very quickly into EV adoption. So we've seen, I think, if we look at the different countries, the answer to that really, I would say, is I don't know when we're going to get to that point where we will be the norm, but I think it's going to happen a lot quicker than what I expected to happen, back in 2013, back in 2014. But that's the exciting thing, because when it does happen, new technology, the battery technology will be even better. So we'll be driving, maybe able to do 600, 700 kilometers on a charge. And that's what fascinates me.
And the last question is more a request to you to talk to our viewers, because when you travel so much with your wife, it's not just about the adventure, it's not just about to drive, it's a way of life, how you see, not the industry, but how you see the world, how you imagine the planet for the future generation. So what kind of advice you can share with them after so many experiences you had?
We're doing this amazing adventure, and it is, like I say, a world first. But what we're really doing as we travel through all these countries is we're meeting up with amazing people in these countries that are doing incredible things to inspire people around climate change. People are doing incredible things in these different countries, and we want to shine a light on what they're doing. So it's more about those stories. And we're using, through this expedition, what we're trying to do is show people the simple little changes that you can make in your lives. So if you can't afford an electric vehicle, you can remove single-use plastics from your home. And that sounds like a very small thing, but on the expedition, that's what we're doing. We're not using single-use plastic products to show you that you can go out and buy those products tomorrow, and then you influence the people around you to go and buy those products as well. And suddenly, we're not using single-use plastic. The oceans are not getting filled with single-use plastic. And it's to show that we can all do simple things to impact and positively impact the climate crisis, but don't try and solve or think you need to solve climate change on your own, because you can't. You can do a simple thing, and that's all you need to do.
Chris, it was a pleasure to talk to you. When you will come to Brazil in this journey, the next journey? Because we have to wait you here. You can charge your car here in the garage. We expect you with a coffee and maybe to have some jokes about the Brazil and England in the World Cup.
There's going to be plenty of jokes about that, I think. But yeah, that's the thing. We've researched the route. We're looking at maybe options, but I would say never that you won't see us in Brazil. But I can't guarantee. But if we do, we'll surely be here.
Okay, we expect you. It was a pleasure. Have a nice trip. Falei para vocês que a história era incrível. Quero ver você fazer uma viagem como a do Chris e da esposa dele. Certamente é hora de você também ter um carro elétrico. Está chegando. Esse é o futuro e você acompanha tudo com a gente dessa nova realidade que o mundo vive nas ruas, fora delas, nesse conceito de um mundo melhor. Até a próxima.